On this episode of Content Sessions, we talked to Laura Tucker, leadership coach and podcast host of Free Your Inner Guru. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about Freeing My Inner Guru.
Okay, well, that's a name and a brand that I created just over 2 years ago. I was getting ready to launch my podcast, and I wanted to have something that people who would resonate with me and my work as a leadership coach. But it's all about accessing your wisdom from the inside out, your values, the dent you want to make in the world, and then taking that out into the world once your inner compass is set.
Awesome. And so how long have you been operating this as a business?
For 5 years. So the podcast is the newest addition to the offering or what I'm doing. And so the story behind that is I used to be a lot of things. From a teacher, I was in business, have owned different businesses. And then I was a consultant in the automotive industry for a number of years out in British Columbia. And so my husband and I moved back to Toronto in 2014, and I wanted to transition into not being a specialist in a single industry, right, and working with any business owner, any business leader. But it became more, just like with the brand, more about values and what type of business are they running and what type of leader do they want to be.
Got it. So I'm kind of picking up similar to marketing. It's funny, with everyone thinks it's different from business to business. It's not. It's the same thing. It's just the different voice, the different medium, the different words. But is that the same way you feel, I guess, about leadership?
It is, because it doesn't matter what you're leading, whether it's you're a principal in a school or a car dealer or a senior manager in the automotive industry or a corporate leader or even a leader of your own solo business. Yeah. The key principles are the same. Just like in marketing and business development or retention, the key business activities are the same. Yeah. It's more about scale when it comes down to it. And is it one person that needs to lead themselves, or is it a person or a group of people that needs to lead a team?
Understood. So if we take kind of a step back in terms of the experience that led you here, you said that you had owned some businesses and you were in the automotive industry. What would you say the role that you had before that had the biggest impact towards here? Were you in one thing for a really long time, or a bunch of things for shorter times, or?
Well, it's been a journey with a number of stages, starting with, and believe it or not, I use it all the time, I used to be a school teacher.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I taught primary, junior, and then high school here in Ontario. And this is going to date me a little bit, but it was back in the Ray days. I was a new teacher. And the climate for teachers right now is very similar to the way I have so much empathy for any of the teachers in the position that they're in, where their jobs may be at risk, or their classroom sizes are going to go up. And I became a commodity in that system, and it didn't sit well with me. Sure. It caused me quite a lot of distress, psychologically, emotionally, because I was very passionate and I couldn't get over it not being a merit-based system. Sure. Right. Yeah. So from there, it took a lot, and I guess it was courage, but I certainly didn't think of it that time. But I left for a career in the corporate sector, first as a trainer, then in sales. And really after that, I started my own business, and I've used skills and experience, and they're all transferable. Yep. And that's when my automotive consulting became a thing. So, and that was me going back to some of my best clients when I was selling to them to say, hey, do you think with my skills set as a teacher and trainer and what I know about this massive system that I was selling them, do you think that there is a need for what I can bring? And fortunately, the very first person that I spoke to said, I really don't care what other leaders think. Right. You're starting next week. I want you to go home and write up a contract, figure out how I'm going to pay you, and we're going to come in here and build that client retention system that we've been talking about for the last 3 years. Awesome. Because we're just not doing it on our own.
Got it.
And so that was it. It was very much, I guess it's a bootstrapping of a kind, because then I was like, oh, I got to figure this out and do it.
Yeah, I've done that to my team a couple of times where we've been asked, oh, do you do training for this? And I'm like, of course we do. I go home like, hey, we got 3 weeks to come up with a program about this. And it's funny because you know the material. It's just like, how do you articulate it in the right order with the right cadence per se, right?
Oh, and that's where the communicating and the teaching and being able to really enroll and enlist people and engage them in a process without them being, they might feel like as a consultant, I always, oftentimes the people who I was working with I'd been brought in by the business owner and they were quite threatened by me.
Yeah.
And so after earning their trust and then having them see, like, I don't want your job.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you be better in your job. And that's how even the coaching started organically.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And were you before teaching? So it seems like how long was the teaching?
All told, 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. And were you in anything entrepreneurial before that? Because it seems like and I have a weird kind of chunk like that too, where I was very entrepreneurial, had a lot of little businesses, a lot of different things, worked commission based, which is the closest thing when you work for a company, and then worked for 6 years in like a completely weird stale industry. Were you doing entrepreneurial things before that?
No, I can't really say. I'm trying to think back. I mean, I had a paper route. Right. What I was doing was coaching things. Yeah. So it's funny how that all evolved later in my career. But when I was a teenager, I had all the odd jobs that, a teenager in the 80s would have, and then, did a lot of bartending when I went through university. So I was always had good initiative, but never really, I wasn't one of those lemonade stand kids. Right. Or anything like that. Yeah. And it was more around having to organize things and then get other people to go and realize their best result. Got it.
And now do you find you've been kind of in both? Are you the kind of person where you've tasted it now and you're like, I couldn't go back to reporting to somebody, I just couldn't do it? Or
such a good question. It would have to be the right person.
Right.
For the right reason.
Got it.
It would have to be so big and meaningful. Yeah. But what I'm focused on now is creating the big and meaningful within the free your inner guru world. Absolutely. And seeing where that goes.
Yeah. I'm always interested with that question where it's like you've kind of tasted both. For me, because I hate being told what to do so much, I couldn't see it. Even if even if the business never really grew and it kind of just maintained itself, I would be like, no, I'll stick with that. I have such a trouble with my opinion. I always think that I'm right, which is a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. I'm sure you've experienced that. But I just find that question interesting. And so now kind of circling back to where you're at now. Mm-hmm. So who are the types of people that you work with in the Free Your Inner Guru?
So a large section of my target market are people who own their own business. And I really, this is the idealist in me. But when I came back to Toronto, you can imagine coming here, and I lived here for the bulk of my early life, and I just lived in BC for 9 years. But my entire network was in the West, right. Still is, but coming back, I really wanted to use what I had accumulated over the years in service of people who I felt needed it the most, who wouldn't necessarily have access to a high-paid consultant. Right. And the coaching model works well in that regard. Got it. Very much the way when I got hired on for my consulting career, especially when I lived in Kelowna in the Okanagan Valley, there wasn't necessarily businesses there that were large enough to support me full time. Yep. But they were more than willing to engage me for 1 or 2 days a week. Sure, yeah. Provided that we could get the traction and the results over time.
Got it. And so it's kind of small to mid-sized business owner is your sweet spot?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
And from that, are you finding that there's kind of it doesn't sound like you are positioning yourself in a niche? It's more just small business. But do you find that the clients that come to you are in a niche or a certain type of business? I sometimes find, like I know from the people that we have contact with, it's like referrals from existing, and then so it's always the same type of business. Mm-hmm. A lot of times for us. Do you find it's kind of a wide range of people, or
it's a wide range of businesses? Yeah. But it's more about sort of the psychographics than the demographics of the business.
Okay.
So, the sort of the beliefs. So it took me a very long time to be, sort of out of the spiritual closet, but I do use spiritual principles in my coaching.
Okay.
That being said, I've just recently, I ran a workshop, and there were a number of people in it who know me well, and they came out of it saying, well, that was way less woo and way more practical than I expected. I was like, of course it was, because that's what we need to do with, the spiritual. It needs it, but it's more about the values and behind it.
And how do you mean spiritual?
I mean spiritual in the sense of wanting to be fully expressed and in alignment with a sense of well-being, and dare I use the word purpose.
Okay.
Purpose is a big word, and I don't think people have to have it nailed right down, but this idea of having an inner compass around when we are really in alignment with who we are and what we're here to do, it feels good. It doesn't mean it's any less uncomfortable to do some of the things, like, especially visibility in the business.
Right.
But going through, I take everybody through a process to define, yes, what their values are, but really what their sense of what they're here to do. And then and look back and see how they've applied that across their life. So it would be, if we looked at me as an example, it's about making a difference and raising self-awareness, and the business is the modality.
That's the word that popped into my mind, was self-awareness. Yeah.
And you can use a business to do that.
Sure. Absolutely. Learn all kinds of stuff all day, every day about every component, even if you don't want to.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fun though. It's for me, business is my expression of creativity. It's why I do this, because I have a mind for something in particular, marketing and content and strategy and stuff. So that's kind of like, this is my creative process. I can't draw, I can't paint, I sure as hell can't sing. And so this is my kind of medium for it. And so did you develop the program? Tell me a little bit about the development of the program. So it's, there's kind of a self-awareness piece, and then there's what's next. So
what I did last year, I sat down and I realized that I was coaching a lot. My practice was primarily private clients, a lot of one-to-one time, and that's great. It's like the big rock of the business.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was taking everybody through the same process to get to a point where we could engage in what I actually call coaching.
Got it.
And so I looked at that and I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm using an accumulation of all the tools and insight that I've accumulated, especially over, say, the course of the last decade when it comes to the inner alignment piece.
Got it.
And so I looked at that and said, okay, if I'm doing it over and over with people one-to-one, that suggests to me that it is scalable in some way. So I created a leadership workshop, and it's a one-day format. There's really more than 1 day's worth of content in it. But we spend a good part of that day going through, what Simon Sinek calls your why.
Yep.
And, I draw on some of his work, and I draw on some of the things that work for me, especially since a lot of people, when it comes down to being fully self-expressed, we run into all kinds of resistance around it. It's a vulnerable thing to do. It means actually allowing yourself to be fully seen in the context of your life and business. And so we go from there, and I use a strategy framework that is very simple, but it works in business. It works just in results in general. And then when we get down to the brass tacks, if we're working in the business, which a lot of the times we are, I go back to I go way back for the retention, getting the basics of the business in there on a repeatable, ongoing basis.
Okay. And how have you found the openness of people when it's in a group, when you're trying to do that type of thing in a group setting versus one-on-one? It feels like I know from the way that we do training, we do it with one company at a time. We're working on something where it's like more companies all together. My mind, I'm thinking, well, if you've got, then they're expressing ideas and concerns and troubles that they're having as a group, and maybe there's more that they pick up. But how do you find getting the vulnerable pieces out of people in a group setting versus an individual?
I find shockingly effective. And I think part of that is that, I go through an exercise where they look at what their stories are, their peak experience is, and their pit experiences. And I have people plot them out, and then I kind of go first and I guide them to say, what we're going to do right now is go through, you're going to select off of this timeline a number of your stories, you're going to share them with a partner. And I make it really clear that this is not about bringing the skeleton out of the closet. We don't have to go there in order to find the kernels of wisdom. Okay. Nor is it therapy.
Yeah.
And so we have to be mindful just of what we're putting out on the table, but we're looking for themes and patterns. And what I find is that when it comes down to it, I'm there to facilitate the end piece of it, but people respond so well to actually being able to share their stories and be heard.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of talk. There's not a lot of, real great listening out there. So I love it because I get to see, and then they realize, oh, hey, when it gets down to, okay, what's blocking you? What's the one thing right now that you could do in your business that's in alignment with all of that? Mm-hmm. And, what aren't you doing? And then to hear half of the room say, well, I know that if I did more video and allowed myself to be seen, then suddenly they're not the one sitting at home or in their office, bashing their heads against the wall, right, beating themselves up because they're the only one.
I'm not the only one. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm just like that too.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny. You can always find ways to procrastinate around the thing that you're least comfortable with.
100%. and it's my job as the coach to challenge that.
Got it.
Right.
Very cool. And it feels like you've got, it feels like it's something where it's very like exercise based, the one day thing, like
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And then it moves into, okay, so now that we've designed it, these are the recurring actions that need to happen in order to get these results.
Okay.
So now...
And so when you say actions, can you give me like, not maybe an example or like kind of clarify a little bit about what you mean by an action? Like, is it like you're giving them a task list to do or what, how does that...
So they're developing the task list under guidance and sometimes advice. And I'm always very clear when I'm putting the consulting hat on, mm-hmm. Because, who am I to... I want what people do in their business to be something that makes them feel good. Yeah. Because I've done it all. Like I've done it all that feels bad, and it was, I've spent all kinds of money on Facebook ads in the past. I've blogged. I've tried video, and then the first thing that actually had true organic growth was the podcast. Yeah. Much to my surprise. Yeah. The phone started ringing, people started sharing it. The feedback would come in saying, oh my God, your voice, this sounds like at the CBC, which I take as a very high compliment in that regard.
Sure. I haven't had that one yet.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool one.
I don't think I'm going to get it. That's fine.
But so looking for those things that lend to the strengths. And if anyone had asked me in advance what I thought my strength would be, I would have said blogging. Right. I would have said writing because I'm a decent writer, but there's just something that resonates more literally in terms of like the sound, but bringing the stories and I'm with the podcast, I'm on a mission to showcase what authentic, conscious self-help and growth principles are. That is my soapbox.
Got it.
And so I think that's why, because that's right in alignment with, I don't do anything with my clients in workshop or private that I don't do myself. Right. So the power of that is like, okay, let's experiment with a few things, find out what works, find out what doesn't, but you don't have to say, oh, hey, I'm going to do this for the next 5 years. And
sure.
wear yourself out on it.
Yeah, it's funny. We're very similar in that way. I get a lot of great feedback. People that hear a podcast that weren't in the industry, but there was like a marketing idea that they pulled out, or just learning more about. And it's funny. The reason why I kind of go back to the history, like I like to go, where did you start? Were you an entrepreneur before? Because the person that's thinking about doing something, who thinks, oh, I had to go to school for it, or I had to go down this path, or I had to be in the industry for 20 years before I could do anything about it. It's like, no. Like, people just figure shit out. And then when you find something that you're good at, if you can figure out how to monetize that and help people, then you're in a really good spot. And so that's kind of how I've framed it. Like, I didn't make it through school at all. I barely got through high school. I went to half a year of university, and they're like, can you leave? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. No problem. You know what I mean? And I worked weird jobs and started little businesses here and there. And then I stumbled into marketing 6 years ago, and I was like, oh shit, like I get it. And it clicked, and I'm like, okay, that's the thing now. But it's funny. It doesn't take that much. If you're good at it, then you just...
Well, and I think it's important to explore and then experiment.
Yeah.
Right. And there's this whole, it might just, I don't think it's just me. I know it's lots of people, but we kind of get groomed into thinking that, hey, this has to be perfect. Mm-hmm. You have to make six figures in 6 months or weeks to be anybody.
Right.
And that's baloney.
Yeah.
And in that process of exploring and experimenting, you follow what works. And then what I had to learn was to let go of what doesn't. And that is probably the more valuable lesson, is like realize when something's not working, and don't be afraid or embarrassed to pack it in.
For sure.
And don't be afraid to revisit again in the future once you've developed, but it may never be the thing.
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of those, like trying to write. It's not a thing I do. I don't even pretend. I'm horrible. I can barely, I'm okay at reading, but I have no attention span, so it makes it challenging. I really believe actually that people, especially when they're younger and they should do as many different jobs as possible.
100%.
I know so many things that I never want to do and that I hate.
Yeah.
So many things. A lot of them. And I did them all, and I was like, this is not good. Got to move on. Next thing, this is not good either. I think it helped me eliminate the grass is greener thing, because I was like, oh, I've been in like 20 things, and I know that these ones all suck. So even though this one's like not perfect, I know what the alternative looks like, and I don't want to be there.
Oh, I so feel that. And even as a parent, I have a stepson who's 24, and he's a musician. He is self-taught, incredibly gifted, and rather than pressure him into being in school, what we're watching is a young man explore all these different opportunities, pick up all kinds of trade skills and business skills. And when I look back, I grew up with the idea that you were going to get one job for life, because that's what my parents did. Right. My mother was a teacher. My dad worked for Coca-Cola. Yeah. And then somewhere between them and me, all of that changed. Yep. And so when I started teaching, that was actually my fallback. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I saw myself going to an office every day, and all I needed was a few summers working in the office at Coca-Cola to teach me, like, that is exactly what I do not want to do. But it's funny that most people have this romantic vision of what that is, because it's like, oh, that's the thing that put food on the table, and that's the thing that my parents came home from, and whatever. But I wish parents were more honest. I wish they were like, no, this is like a disaster. I fucking hate my life. I hate being stuck in a thing every day. Like, that would have been good to know. Yeah, you know what? As I got older, I realized that my parents actually were being quite honest, and they were not. They both retired out of what they're doing. My dad, not by choice. Yeah. As corporations do, they cleared out middle management, broke his heart, broke his spirit. But at the end, he had a whole life after that that was so radically different. Yeah. That there was value in that experience in the end. Yeah, absolutely. Funny. It's funny how we grow up in a certain way with a perception that's so ingrained, and then you're like, oh no, this is not what I thought. No.
But a lot of people get stuck. I know a lot of people that are doing things they hate just because they don't know what else to do. Where else to go.
Yeah.
Engineering is a big one where it's like, it was nice to have the title and the this and the that, but then it's like just working 12 hours a day, every day. It's good money. But yeah, it's funny how many people in the professional field, it's just not quite right for them.
Yeah. Even when I was leaving teaching, which, this was 97, like I had no idea what self-help was or personal development, and everybody around me discouraged me. It was more or less keep being miserable, keep being depressed, keep being frustrated. And it became very unhealthy for me. And by, I don't even know what to call it, luck, fate, circumstance, I found the book, What Color Is Your Parachute, in the bookstore. And I think they're still putting out annual versions of this. And it was all about transferable skills. And I worked my way through that book page by page, exercise by exercise, and I came up with a bunch of skills and was like, oh, well, I think I can sell.
Yeah. And
initially started looking for work as a pharmaceutical rep, and that would have been changing two things at once, right? The role and the environment, and then as things turned out, the first position I took outside of teaching was as a trainer in the new industry and with teaching the new thing, but all the skills were the same.
Yeah.
And that actually became a bit of an MO for me, was, am I changing too much here? And I've done that. And that was one of those things I had to realize and let go. And just that, that step by step, looking at, okay, how can I leverage these skills, or how can I leverage this knowledge?
Who's the author of the book? I'll tag it up in the show note.
Oh gosh, it's so long ago. I'm not going to remember. I apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll Google it.
Yeah.
What color is your parachute?
Yeah.
Got it. Shout out to whoever did that.
Yeah. No.
Good job. And so now, where are you kind of going with the business? What are the current goals? Are you expanding on the one-on-one? Are you expanding the workshop? Are you going online? Are you doing Skype still? Like where is it going? Where do you want it to go?
So when you're coaching, you find out pretty quickly that there is a lower ceiling on the number of private clients that you can service well than you think.
Sure.
And because there's so much energy that goes into each client.
Yeah.
And so it's not all that scalable.
Got it.
Nothing wrong with having just a practice with private clients, but over the years, I backed out of that and created the workshop to make it scalable in groups. So that's in place. And what I'm really wanting to do is create a community around the podcast.
Yeah.
And from the point of view of, in business and marketing, there's a funnel there.
Yep.
Where that community is and should attract people who would resonate and want to potentially do business with me, but also in the community amongst themselves.
Got it. Yep.
So that's where looking at how to monetize that, looking at how to set up systems to make it so that I can publish, more than a couple times a month, making it sustainable.
Yep.
Because the podcast is where I devote my quality time to.
Yeah.
And to shake things up recently, and in the spirit of community building, I took a challenge from a friend to do 100 days of Facebook Live, because I hate live streaming.
That's so many days.
It is so many days, but transformation so people are like, why 100 days, right? Because it sounds arbitrary, and it's like, well, it's kind of a sexy number.
Yeah.
It sounds daunting because it is.
Got 2 zeros in it.
Hello. It does. It's pretty. Great hashtags. But what I do know is that if you do something over a period of 100 days, every single day, something's going to change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no
something's
doubt.
going to transform.
No doubt.
I don't know what it is.
Yep.
But like the results, because I have been plateaued online for some time.
Yeah.
Which we can talk about, would be great.
Yeah.
But I figure if that doesn't create some traction online, then I have to look at, go back and look at, all right, what am I not doing? What am I not getting?
Yeah. For sure. Okay. And do you, with the podcast, are you doing video or you're just recording right now?
I'm just recording.
Okay. Have you thought about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do in-person interviews for the most part?
So I use Zoom.
Okay.
So I use Zoom, and
Oh,
so
you
there
have
is
video already.
Oh yeah, I
Kinda.
have video.
Yeah.
And I think I'm getting there. Like I fixed up my office.
Yeah.
And so the background looks a lot better now than it used to, and I'm getting there.
Yeah.
The audio is to me, what makes podcasting intimate is the audio.
Yes. Yep.
So it's audio first.
I agree. That's the majority. I use this, and why we don't address the camera is like it's secondary, but it's content for YouTube.
Yeah. And
it's Instagram story content, and it's the hack around getting more video. And it doesn't have to be fancy. My couch usually sits right here. It's sitting over there now. This is my living room.
Oh, see, I think this is really fancy.
It's cool, right?
It's
just,
wonderful.
It's just because it's such a wicked space.
Yeah.
It's not that we did anything cool with it. Yeah. This is sitting on a smaller desk right now. It's not even secure. That's fine. It looks cool from the video. But you know, you can dress up that one spot to make it look kind of sweet. And so I think, I think even if it's an afterthought, video has given us the flexibility of content. And what I mean by that is our episodes all go up on YouTube, which is great for SEO and just for visibility to bring them back to the audio version. I don't actually focus on getting subscribers on YouTube, but YouTube is a tool that I use to bring on listeners in general. So in my description, I'll say, we talked with blah, 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 blah. Check them out here. Check me out on social here. Subscribe to the podcast. So I've got all the links in every description so that if someone stumbles on it there, I can bring them into that ecosystem. So that's a good idea just because it gives you A, YouTube, and B, if it's you take under 10-minute clips and it goes on Instagram TV, which we've been slacking on. I've actually got about 70 clips right now because we've been recording and we haven't published a lot yet. I think we've only published 8 or 9, but this is episode like 25.
Oh, fantastic.
And they're about an hour long each. So we get 2 or 3 between 3 and 10-minute clips. So we have those ready for Instagram TV, for shorter YouTube ones that are, just about that topic. So just having more content. That's why I kind of like video.
I was listening to your last podcast, and so one of my limitations right now around the podcast is budget, which is why the monetizing is important.
Sure, yeah.
But it's getting, because I'm a bit of a geek, and everything I'm doing right now, I'd say 99.9% of what I'm doing it.
Yes.
And that's not sustainable. That's not scalable.
Challenging.
It's really challenging.
Yeah.
But I heard you talking about interns.
Yeah.
And I was like, why didn't I think of that before? Because there's going to be, now that I've got, I actually really do enjoy the hands-on approach because it helps me to be able to train it, but also to be able to understand the systems in my own business. Because I think that is actually a responsibility of every business owner.
Yep.
Can't be, a lot of people relinquish that stuff.
Yep.
But to hand it off in a cost-effective manner that would help somebody, I'm keenly interested in that idea because I'm at that really awkward stage that ironically I take other people through, and it's like, all right, the framework and the structure of there is absolute labor that needs to be done here, and to a quality level that I'm going to be proud of. Yep.
So a couple of things you can do there. If you've got a little bit of a budget, you can post freelance jobs on university job boards for free online. That's been major for us. So we get people who are still getting educated on it, but I'll tell you, when they have a brand that's a real brand that they're putting work into and they can use that in their portfolio, it's huge for them. And so you're not paying them premium rates, you're paying them smaller amount, but the experience and the exposure that they're getting is generally going to be worth it for them. You can also, there's also a thing called Gen M. I think I've talked about this on the last couple. It's the guy who started it's based out of Ottawa. I talked to him a little while ago. They do it where if you're a student or a recent graduate and you're looking to hone your skills somewhere, it's an online internship. So you pay the platform $47 a month.
Oh.
Yeah. And so you have to lock in for 3 months. So it's basically $150. And what you do is you interview candidates. So you search them based on the skills that they have, what they want to learn, and also what platforms they know how to use. So Premiere and whatever for video editing, Photoshop and what Canva for graphic design, whatever those things are. You interview a bunch of people, and then when they lock in, they're on a 3-month internship with you. And what they do is they dedicate 10 hours a week at a minimum to whatever. And so we outsource all of our like YouTube cover art. I have them make the audio blip. So we take the pictures and turn them into videos with the audio blips. We use an app for that.
Yeah,
Wave.
I do that too.
Yeah. And so we say, hey, here's a Google Drive full of a bunch of pictures, all the audio, all of this. Listen through it, take out some quotes, cut the audio, make it into the wave thing.
I have so much content that I could do that with.
So I would do that because then, and so what they ask in return is that you spend a period of time every week giving them some mentorship. And you're full of that. So it's fine. You got it taken care of. So, we talk, the girl that works with us called Wendy, she does graphics and that kind of stuff for us. And then we talk about marketing strategy, like stuff that she didn't learn in her program, like hands-on, like, hey, if I'm going to learn ad platforms, like what the hell should I learn? There's so many things. If I'm going to be putting out content for this type of audience, where should I be putting it? Stuff that like you can read about it on a blog, but like I've now done it with 200 clients. Like I can tell you firsthand exactly what to do, where and when. And so I think that knowledge for them is worthwhile. I think there's some kind of educational credit piece that they can get as well, something like that. But so we've been doing so that intern digitally, and then also the student job boards, and you'll get anywhere from like 17 to $25 an hour. And what I've done is I say, look, we've done a bunch of these together now, and we know how much time it takes. So now let's set in a price per episode. And to me, you still have to, it's still money going out, but you can do it for a more reasonable amount instead of bringing it to a recording company or an agency, right? I'm going to charge you $100 an hour if you hire me. Because I've got staff and I've got different things. Now you have to do the management yourself, but if you find the right couple of people, super worth it. It's going to be ROI positive because the more you can pump out and the less you have to do of shit you're bad at or takes you a long time, the more podcasts you can do.
Well, and I mean, my best skills are being out in front of people,
right? Not
at my computer.
For sure.
As much as because you were saying about the creativity aspect. Yeah. It's been so surprising to me. Like photography is my thing. This may have been before we were recording, but you're saying like I don't write, I don't do this. Yeah. My creative art is photography because my drawings they're horrible. But I love crafting the episode. That being said, again, it's not sustainable unless unless it scales ridiculously, but it doesn't scale ridiculously without all the effort in the systems.
Yeah. Yep. And so what I would do is so what we do is you would use Google Drive or Dropbox?
Both for different things. Yeah.
So we have a folder called content sessions, and then each episode has a thing. And then there's photos, wave files, graphics. So anything that's like stapled to the episode, audio, full video, 1-minute Instagram clips, Instagram TV/YouTube clips. And so they all live in folders. And then I have a checklist of this is how many pictures that we need with quotes on them for each one. So if someone goes through, listens to it, writes down all the quotes on a Word doc, I'll quickly zip through.
And say, this one.
Yep. And then those will get turned into graphics where it's like me or some situation and then the words like over whatever. And so organizing it that way with a checklist of what needs to be done will help tremendously. The other thing is on your phone. Are you iPhone?
Yes.
Yeah. So go through other podcasters and other channels and other mediums like that and take screenshots of the ads and of the quote posts that you like of theirs and then put it into a lookbook thing on a private Pinterest channel or just dump them all into Google Drive or whatever, like inspiration.
Yeah.
And so they know visually, oh, okay, this is because someone who's good at graphic design will see your 20 that you are like, I don't know how close they are. And they'll say, oh, I see, it's pattern A, B, and C. And then they know exactly what you want before you even go through that first process. So that'll speed things up. Put examples of the stuff that you like and just keep filling that bucket because that will make their job faster, less back and forth. Yeah.
And it would be fun too.
Yeah.
Right.
You should see the amount of saved things I have on my phone. I save ads, Facebook and Instagram ads, to see what
screen grabs all the time.
Everything. So I just have buckets in my photo library, so I know which ads I like, podcast graphics I like. But yeah, having that as a resource for the person that's going to be doing it will make their job fast. Yeah. So that's a couple things that we've done. But the Gen M thing's cool. You can get as many as you want. You can go up to he said the average business that engages them has 4 intern engagements at a time. So 4 people.
Nice.
I don't know how you'd manage all that, but it's
well,
the thing,
one
it's
at
the
a
thing
time,
that you could do. Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
one at a time.
Yeah. And then from the promotion of your podcast, so how are you doing it now? Is it just kind of going out? Like, where are you distributing it that? Yeah, we'll start there. Where do you distribute it?
So I distribute it across the social networks that I'm on. So that would be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I use a handy tool called CoSchedule, if you're familiar with that.
Nope.
But yeah, it's cool because there's posting templates in there. So I have a posting template for each episode. So a new blog, a new podcast.
Got it.
And that's actually all documented already.
Right.
What I enjoy about that is that I've become accustomed to writing for the template, and I know what's going out over that, and then the engagement. And this is the piece that I'm really wanting to work on now is, because I said community building. Well, community is all about engagement.
Yeah.
It's not just post and abandon.
Yep.
And I'm guilty of that for sure, because it comes down to time.
Yep. Yeah. I'd find a way to spend more time on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you've got it on what, like iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Overcast.
Oh yeah, sorry. Like where it's yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just like you've got it in, it's in like a feed version, and then it spits out.
Yeah. So it spits out to sort of the usual suspects, as well as Spotify and TuneIn and Android and.
Got it. And then what do you do from the promotional side, other than posting it on your channels?
That's probably where there's a deficit.
Got it. Okay. So what I would say is we will often, if we have an episode about a particular industry, we'll tag a bunch of businesses in that industry, because that's usually a good spark of like, oh, that's relevant to me and that's interesting. Or even if we write long form social posts that are practical for the restaurant industry or that or the whatever, we'll tag a bunch of them in the post, so that at least gets in front of them. But what we found the most effective is if you find groups on LinkedIn and groups on Facebook. So there's a couple reach out techniques that you got to pay attention to. So some of them have like open-ended posting. Some of them are posts you post and the moderator has to approve them.
Yeah.
Our technique is to always reach the moderator and say, hey, not looking to spam your group at all. This is in no way promotional. It's just something that I think your group will get a lot out of. 100% of the time they're like, cool, do it. But sending that message ahead of time instead of like, hey, I've got this thing. Do you want to put it up? Or not even, or just trying to post it. Yeah. I always find the administrators and I'll DM them separately saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know I put this into your funnel. But if you say, I'm not selling anything and it's going to be really helpful, I think your group will get a lot out of it. Here's a blurb, here's a sentence about what it's about. Yeah. You'll get not only a response rate, but the acceptance rate is super, super high.
And what do you think about doing that for past episodes?
100%.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that they're in the past. Nobody pays attention. Like, even if you had 1,000 episodes, if you have an episode that's specific to whatever that thing is, absolutely, they live on forever, right? So the way I would think about that is, so if you've got an episode that's catered to real estate agents, and maybe you touch on a couple of like roadblocks that a lot of agents face, and you kind of help that person work through it or think through some pieces, that's super valuable to real estate agents. So I would find real estate groups on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and just say, hey, this is an episode of a podcast. It's my recording. It's not promotional. It's just specific to real estate agents, tackles these things. Would love if we could post it. If you'd share it, that'd be amazing. So that, I would even reach, this is the labor thing. So this could be what the intern style person does. Yeah. Business development, selling, right? So have them email 100 real estate agents or brokerages, brokerages. We've done that with pieces of content saying, hey, we have this blog and this is super helpful to agents. Would love for you to share it in your internal channels. Works.
Yeah, it's literally outreach.
Yeah, that is the most cost effective. That will also bring you clients, because that distribution is very specific. And if you're not selling anything in it, they're hearing it, they're understanding what value you're providing, and then they want to know more and they call you. Yeah, that's what we do. Like, that's what this is for, where I can give you some ideas for marketing, and then someone else sees it and they're like, oh, I could see how that could be used for my business. And I'm not promoting anything, I'm not trying to sell you anything, I'm just giving you some good ideas. So I think your content would be very similar. So it's just a matter of how can you distribute it more. Yeah. And I think you can do it with ads. It's effective, but it's costly. I think sending it to people that will get value out of it, and just figuring out how to like systematize that.
Yes. And my mind is going all the sort of top episodes, where they can go.
Yeah, cherry pick them.
Yeah, because people, I mean, and this is one of the things that in other things that I've done, I would be hesitant or shy about it, but I'm really proud of this podcast.
For sure.
And you know, really, and it's coming from a place of service. It's coming from a desire to have big conversations that undo things like myths and misperceptions and undoing some of the sort of shame culture that we have around business and self-development. So, you know, so it's interesting to think about it in that way, because, you know, there's a gap. Like, I have a virtual assistant who does some of this stuff, but her time would be way more, the return on that would be a lot more effective to have her diving deep into my overflowing inbox and to put some of that repetitive work out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think, you know, this is a version of selling for me, just like the podcast is a version of selling for you, right? Somebody hears it and it's practical and you're not being salesy, so they trust you and they want to do business with you. Content marketing, that's all it is. I live and breathe it. That's what I recommend to everybody super strongly. It sounds like you've got all the tools there. It's just a distribution problem for you at this stage.
Yeah, and that's actually a really exciting feeling. May I ask you a question?
Of course.
So this is one of the challenges that I've had, and based on some of what you're saying there is, and I do think it comes from listening to other sources where it's like harder pitch, harder sell, that if it's not like, and so I've had some internal challenges around, you know, am I putting a strong enough call to action in my podcast? And I'm seeing now what happens with the podcast is that when somebody comes to it, they listen, and then they go back and they listen to all, say, 47 of them. Right. And in my mind, I'm like, oh man, if I'd only put the call to the Patreon community on from day one, they would hear that 47 times. And sometime around time 15, they'd be like, I love this thing. I'm gonna participate in that. Yeah,
sure.
So in your mind, where's the balance between, you know, strong call to actions and then I'm being sold here?
Yeah. Whatever from so I talk to a lot of people that are in sales and that are selling, and from the marketing side, I see a lot of mistakes. I see a lot of, oh no, but this blog post is like my content marketing. I'm like, no, like you're the answer to the problem. You're option 6, 7, and 8. So option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, your people that you were shouting out or competitors that you were unbiasedly talking about, it's bullshit, because you're going to say something about them that leads them to you. So I see a lot of that. And when people wrap their head around, you have to be completely detached from the solution of the content, but that doesn't mean you cannot ask for someone to do business with you. So it sounds to me exactly what you're doing, saying, hey, if this is something that, you know, you want to hear more about or you want to support it, would love a whatever, but it's not contingent on the content. You're not doing anything where the content goes to 75% like a fucking webinar. Those people that do all those fucking webinars where they talk about themselves for like 35 minutes and they're oh, cool, here's 2 things you can do on the internet. Oh, by the way, buy my coaching. Like, fuck off. I hate it. It's everybody. Yeah. So the way you're already winning. And putting a call to action of, hey, do you want to help me do more of this by supporting it? Patreon. Hey, do you need coaching? This? Because none of your content forces that into the funnel, you can throw that ask in, no problem.
So that's in alignment with earning it, right? And it's
1,000%.
yeah.
Yeah. And I would be, and your voice to it can be, hey, I don't need you to do this. I'm going to keep putting out the content, but if it can help you and if you see value in it, then do it. And if not, and you just enjoy it, keep listening. Subscribe if you want. If you don't, whatever. But, and you give them that option. And if you never change the tone of that, if you never half a year in when you've got them in the email list, you're like, okay, now you got to start paying, whatever, then you'll always win. It's just, if people have the expectation of being set up for the sale, but if you never deliver that, other than saying, if you want it, cool, and be very passive, be very whatever about it, authentic to how you would ask for it in person, then you'll never go wrong.
Yeah, I liked what you said there about that detachment.
Yeah.
So that actually goes a long way towards sometimes I record episodes and my guest, this happens rarely, but you get to a point where you can't vet everybody before they walk in the door or get on with you, and the guest turns pitchy.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't even want to put this to my, yes, we're going to promote your book. Yes, we're going to, if you have something on offer, it's going to be done, but it needs to be done within the context of the conversation.
I wouldn't post it.
I don't.
Yeah, don't.
And then I feel bad.
No, don't feel bad. But what you could do to help, what you could do to help circumvent the issue a little bit,
I like you,
is having the conversation ahead of time, saying, hey, at the end of this, I'll give you a forum to talk about things you want to promote, but I'd like to just talk through a conversation and be upfront. Say, I've had people do it and I haven't put the podcast up. This is not a threat, but I won't put it up.
Yeah.
And just be upfront and just, because people don't necessarily know they're doing it either. Because if their content, if their book or their whatever happens to be something that's really helpful, they're like, oh, and they hear the unlock that you start talking and you're like, oh, this is my cue because this book is the help. Yeah. But you're saying, no, it's spammy. But they're like, no, I'm trying to help because this book's great. They might not know they're doing it.
No.
They might know they're doing it because they suck, but they might not know they're doing it. So maybe having that ahead of it.
And they could have been taught that way. To me, I think there's a lot of that out there that's right out of that sort of, as you called it, like the webinar culture the hard to close
people who
culture.
Coach you on how to make a coaching course of how to coach people.
So that coaches are coaching coaches and coaching coaches.
I don't know.
Nothing really changes in the world.
I don't know who's getting anything done, but there's a lot of it. So
this is a soapbox of mine.
Oh my God.
I'm like, I have coached a couple of coaches, but oh man, I want to coach the people who are making the change in the world, and no knock to my fellow coaches, but it can be very circular.
Absolutely.
And
so I think because you don't know, part of the vetting could just be, hey, by the way, I'll give you an open forum to talk about whatever product at the end. We'll link you up in our show notes. We'll link all your products up. But while we're talking, we're just having a conversation. And then if they know that ahead, there's no way that their brain would trigger and they would go into promo mode at that point.
And even saying, hey, if it doesn't, I think I've said on occasion that if it doesn't come up organically, I'll do it in the outro when I close out and point people at you. That's what we're there for. There's
a little bit of promotion doesn't hurt. But I think just telling them that it's not appropriate in the middle. And then that just stunts them in right before they start. Be like, oh, by the way, right at the end, they're like, oh, crap. And then it forces it to be authentic because so here's the thing. When people come on, from my experience, they have a plan of what they're going to say. If I know the format of the podcast, I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about here. And then this is the second question. This is whatever. And then, this is going to be my opening to pitch that thing. So drop it on them right the last second, whereas like, oh, we're not going to do promotion at all. And then it forces them to pay attention and talk to you. It actually starts knocking out the I'm thinking of my answer while you're talking. It's like, okay, well, now I got to really focus on this thing, which is why you didn't get any show notes. I'm just like, we're just going to talk for an hour. And then you just showed up, and then you had no way to prepare if you were going to promo anyway. So try that on people, because then it's very hard for them to then manipulate the conversation into promo.
Well, and I'll tell you what I do that mitigates some of that as well is I actually read the books.
Right.
Instead of taking, if it's coming from a publisher, and taking the canned Q&A.
Right.
And universally after we finish, especially like I know when we've dropped the mic.
Yeah.
and I recently circled back around to somebody to say, hey, you know what? I think we could have done better.
Yeah.
I feel like that one was our lead up conversation. Do you mind? Let's do it again. And she was like, oh my gosh, I felt the same way.
Yeah.
And we created something bigger. So, so I guess, it is really, that's a relationship building in and of itself.
Yeah, for sure. Having to be in the moment. Like as we were both walking in, both of our eyes were rolling back in our head because we were both exhausted. And I was like, no, once the camera goes on, we're going to be good.
Yeah.
Right. And like you get into it, especially when you don't know where it's going to go and you don't know what the answers are going to be or the questions, it like forces you to be like on it. So yeah, good. Yeah. I think that'll help a little bit, but yeah, the promo-y stuff I don't like. Yeah. Especially when it doesn't fit.
No.
But
you can come over to our website and no.
So yeah, I think those concepts for distribution. One other thing is, do you have like a link in your bio that has like an episode page, like a podcast page?
Are you referring, when I hear link in bio, my head goes right to Instagram?
Yes. Okay. So and just in general on the Facebook page, on the Instagram. Yes. Yeah. And so does it pull all the most recent episodes and it has the cover art? Or is it more like do you use Linktree on both your personal one and the other one? I didn't check the other one. I just saw your personal one had Linktree.
Yes.
There's another one called Wave, WAVVE.co. Okay. And they have a free one. And so what it does, you put in your RSS, similar to with the podcast, and it brings up the album art with a player with your most recent episode, your next 3, and then a button to all the different podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, a link out to every single one. And then your social handles on it.
So that would be, so I have the 2 accounts on Instagram. The one that's for Your Inner Guru is much smaller, and it started out really as a placeholder for my the one that's like Laura Tucker, the leadership coach and host piece. And but I see that it could work really well on both, but especially on the app for Your Inner Guru. Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier to share, and it's like a visual, like, oh, I'm listening to a podcast now. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's free. I just stumbled across it, but so the only challenge with them, and I talked to the founder, he said that they're working on the paid version with tools because it doesn't have analytics yet, which is kind of a pain, but it is what it is. They just don't have it. So, but it's a cool, and I think it makes the content easier to share, and it gets people into the mindset of like they can play it right from there, or they can click through to all the podcast channels right away, and it's more visual because you see the icons of them.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, I just switched over to it a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably switch tonight.
Yeah, for sure. It's very easy to set up, actually. It took like 5 minutes.
Then I will do it tonight.
Yeah. And then have you done any ads? Do you do ads at all for the podcast itself?
Within the podcast? Or do you mean
for
external?
For the podcast.
For the podcast. So I have been in a bit of a not spending money on it mode, and I'm ready to come out of it. And and this is thank you, because a lot of what we're talking about is validating sort of what's happening not at scale. Yeah. And because I went through that throw money at blog posts like crazy stage a few years ago. Yeah. I'm more receptive to it now because I trust the content, and I feel like it's quite frankly worth investing in again. Yeah. Yeah, and what we've been promoting them for a couple of other people's podcasts as well as our own. So we do the Instagram story and the Facebook feed ads, where it's like you pick a picture and then you use that wave where the audio wave comes in. Yep. Those, because then it's like, oh, then cool. And then I swipe up. Now the swipe up and the link click goes to that wave.co podcast landing page. That's the sweet spot, because then they can pick wherever they want to go listen to it, and it's only one step. So the swipe. So this is so the swipe up. Though, Instagram story. Yeah. Yes, but the swipe up. Don't you have to have like 10,000? Not if it's an ad. On a paid ad, you get the automatic swipe up. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. And so it swipes up, and then it lands on that podcast landing page, the wave one, where it's got the most recent episode. Yeah. The button out to all of them. That converts super high. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense from all perspectives. Cause yeah. Cool. And so, with the ads, you can do the swipe up as part of it. And then Facebook feeds are going to convert better than LinkedIn feed. I don't know why. I don't know how still. It just does. I don't know. People are used to getting sold to on Facebook more than they are on Instagram. And even though podcasts, I don't know. I feel strongly about it. And I've done a lot of experimentation. It's good to try it all. But I just want to clarify. You said Facebook converts higher than LinkedIn, or Facebook converts higher than Instagram?
Instagram. If you run an Instagram, like an ad on Instagram that's part in your news feed.
Yes.
Versus the Facebook news feed.
Got it.
I think you'll get better conversion from the Facebook side.
Yeah.
Just because people are used to being dragged away on Facebook more so than Instagram. So Instagram's going to get you cheaper views, but less engagements overall. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I love Instagram because of the whole visual piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I was mentioning earlier, I started this 100-day live streaming challenge. Yeah. And that's living over at Facebook. And we'll just see where that goes. But it occurs to me that when I release a podcast, the live stream can be about, you know, hey, the podcast that came out today features such and such.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I think you should also do, this just randomly popped into my head, it's because I'm just in the process of implementing it. I would start an email list around the podcast.
A separate one?
Where do you already have a business email list for
I do,
general content?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I would funnel it into that then, as long as the content's the same content.
Yeah.
What do you use? MailChimp? Or
no, I use ConvertKit.
Okay, so you can do a lot more with that.
Yes.
So what I would do is I would have them be assigned a tag if they come in from the podcast thing, and then you can decide what type of other additional content that could come out. Because it's just a great medium. Unlike paid, once they're there and they're subscribed to it, it's free conversations over and over and over again. So either that or like I've seen some companies do it, but I'm finding it difficult. There's like the Facebook chatbot style group where they opt into it, and then you can do a Facebook message blast to people.
I hate those things.
There's one company that does it so well that I read them every day.
Really?
I just can't wait to get them every day. But it's called Advertisement, but it's MINT. I think they're out of the UK, and they do like blog articles every day, or they find blog articles from different places every day from just all different marketing stuff. So it's my speed, my type of content, and so it pops up as a Facebook message, and it's once a day. But I haven't unsubscribed.
So you opted into that.
Yeah.
And I think that when I say I hate that, maybe I'm not speaking too strongly, but what I'm seeing with the Facebook Messenger is that it feels like it's not permission-based marketing when suddenly I'm getting these Facebook Messenger messages. It's just another way, and it's because I'm in the game, right? But it's like, oh, here now you just found, like, we just created another way for you to get in front of me that I didn't opt into. Yeah. And I see the Facebook Messenger as this is more private space than the feeds. Sure.
And that's why I think a lot of people haven't got into it and haven't got into it successfully. I opted into every single one because I just want to see what they're doing. But if email's working for you, then I'd keep it. And it feels like your audience is answering email anyway. No?
We'll see. Yeah. I think, with ramping everything up, then I have to watch the open rate on the email list is really high. Yeah. The click rate is getting higher all the time.
Then just keep doing email. Funnel it into one space till you have a team that's doing it. Keep it in the same spot. But find a way to funnel your podcast content into that. So in your show notes, have a link that's that opts into it.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. Everywhere you can, put all the means of communication back to where it could be. Even in if you change it from Linktree, then you can't do an email opt-in on that Wave one. Right.
They should maybe add that in their paid version.
Yeah, wave.co. Get on it.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be perfect at the bottom. Put it in there.
I would think about it from especially if you start implementing video at some point. In the YouTube part, hey, you want exclusive content? Like our nobody opts out because we write awesome stuff. We're not going to spam you. It's going to be great. And then get people to opt in through that. Like from the YouTube description, you can have them pop in and opt in.
And go right there. Yeah, I'll look at that. So I do have it going up on YouTube, but it's it is a static image with the audio. It's okay. So it's not technically video, but there is a presence there.
But you could just screen grab the Zoom. Screen record the Zoom. Yeah. I would just do that. Yeah. Do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check up on me. I need accountability on that. I have a ton of resistance around that.
I get it. But we've done promotions for people, even with musicians. We deal with a lot of hip hop artists, And we had one where we didn't have a music video yet, so we just did album art and then the song playing on the YouTube. It did not go well. It did not perform at all. So it's the same kind of concept. It's like, if I stumble across it on YouTube, it better damn well be video. Yeah. That's the expectation. So don't disappoint. Get on it.
Hashtag videophobe.
But yeah, I think funneling people into the email and writing great content that's a little bit, with a bit of exclusivity and some extra things. And if your list is growing and your open rate's growing, I don't think you need any advice on the email side. It feels like you've got a good handle on it.
There's one piece since I've got is so the list, and that's one thing I do really love about ConvertKit, and I know there's other applications out there that do the same thing, but being able to tag. So if somebody comes in, say through a comfort zone challenge or a guidebook that I've got, and that is more coachy. And so they go through a welcome sequence. Then people come in through the podcast and they go through a podcast welcome sequence. So that's all there. But then occasionally, after earning, and nurturing, I do promote a workshop. Right. And so what I've been doing, and I'm not sure it's, my unsubscribes haven't really gone up, but it's new, is that I've got the whole list. I would like to be able to email the whole list, but then say, if this doesn't interest you, click here and you won't hear anymore. Like, it's like that, again, the permission based, and I've seen it, I've emulated it. I'm not sure how effective it is, or if I should be treating it like a partitioned database.
No, I think putting it all together is fine. I think the way that you develop content as is, I think your hesitation of pushing the workshop is not actually pushing the workshop in the way you're thinking about it. I think you're thinking about it like, ooh, I don't really want to do it. But if you're delivering everything else and you're not holding anything back and it's all excellent, and then you're saying, hey, if you want to, you can, no hesitation. Don't do it. Just you're fine. You're absolutely fine. Now, you could have people say, and I have seen that done before, hey, if you don't want to hear about this stuff when I have stuff coming up, you just want this other stuff, you can opt out of those ones. And I think ConvertKit can do that, where it pulls them out of the not for promo type people, and then you don't get them again. So giving them the option is fine, but I don't think presenting the option as a whole to everybody is a problem at all. No, not with the style and the way you think about content. It's not a problem. It's not.
All right, permission to market, right?
You're on the right. You're good to go. You're good to go.
So, it's interesting because had we been having this conversation 2 or 3 years ago, it'd be an entirely different conversation. And just given who I am and what I do, I think it would be worth saying to your listeners and my community that will listen to this is that you keep at it. Yeah. You're gonna fail. I failed. I have failed, right? Yeah. But it's part of the process. Yep. And so, but you keep on the learning track and you keep on I think, what did we say before? Like exploring and experimenting. Yeah. But you got to have good guidance. Like this is excellent. Yeah. Cool. I'm very grateful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me.
Awesome.
I like what you're doing here.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right.